to something that you, the listener, you actually called it months ago.
Yeah, you really did.
You said, watch, the folks who got huge using AI, building these massive platforms, they're going to suddenly start saying AI art, AI media is like bad or slop.
And boom, here we are. It's quite something to see unfold. But what the sources suggest is this isn't just, simple hypocrisy. It looks like it, sure.
Right.
But it's framed as something, well, structurally necessary.
Huh.
A key feature of what some thinkers call the societies of control.
Okay, that's a leap from hypocrisy to structural mandate. So let's zoom in on that. The established creator, the ego, as the sources put it, who built their empire on AI. What's the diagnosis when they flip like this?
The diagnosis, according to these materials, is pretty stark. It's acute reality dissolution, induced by, get this, a categorical imperative, a deep, almost primal need to define what's real, even if that definition is, brand new and serves them directly.
Wow, reality dissolution. Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then is to kind of unpack that. Figure out the underlying mechanics, the money, the psychology, the structure that makes these pioneers suddenly denounce the tools that, well, made them.
Exactly. Why is this moral panic almost essential for them now?
Yeah.
That's what we need to figure out.
All right, let's kick off with the economics because, like you said, the timing is just really suspicious. The sources are pretty blunt. They ripped the totality of human achievement to build their empires, trained models on basically everything, and then only after they're established does the next wave become slop or dangerous.
That timeline, yeah, that's the smoking gun, isn't it? It's pretty clearly economic self-preservation, but it's packaged really cleverly as ethical concern.
So it's not a real change of heart, it's a tactic.
It's absolutely a tactic. It's employing a moral argument to basically stop the arms race right where it benefits the most, the current leaders.
Pulling up the ladder behind them, essentially.
That's a perfect way to put it, yeah. And remember, the big AI companies, their stated goal isn't exactly subtle. It's automate all human labor, concentrate all the wealth. The end game is literally own economy, build a god, and make trillions. For the executives, AI represents productivity without the what the sources call the tax of human labor.
Oh, tax of human labor. That's brutal. It really lays the mindset bare, doesn't it? Humans are just a cost center to be optimized away.
Precisely. So they used AI, they scraped all the data, they got their dominant position, often by cutting corners, rushing things out the door. The sources call it the insanity of the rollout. Driven by this maximum incentive to cut corners on safety for market dominance, they locked down their IP, trained on everyone's stuff, and now all of a sudden, whoa, this tech is too dangerous. Too dangerous to be shared, too dangerous for unregulated competition.
So the rules conveniently change right after they've won. Institutional hypocrisy, basically.
Textbook case. This sudden ethical concern, it's an artificial break.
Yeah.
It's about building walls around the territory they grabbed when things were chaotic and, frankly, maybe not entirely ethical. Remember the sources mentioning backroom deals or hella ads?
Right, yeah.
So now they want regulations, barriers. The moral panic is the new fence they're building.
Okay, that economic angle is pretty clear. Protect the winnings. But let's pivot, like you suggested, to the psychology. Because that word slop, it sounds so dismissive, almost disgusted. Why that word? It feels deeper than just market share.
It totally does. And the sources suggest it taps into this really profound anxiety. It's a defense against something called Vermeulen.
Vermeulen. Okay, that sounds important. Let's unpack that one. What is Vermeulen exactly for someone hearing it the first time?
Okay, so Vermeulen, at its heart, it's this kind of sinking feeling, this frustration that whatever you create, whatever thought you have, artwork you make, it's already out there, statistically speaking, meaning it's statistically redundant across, billions of digital interactions and AI outputs. The thing you just thought was unique has probably already been generated or expressed somewhere, somehow. Your original idea isn't really original anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. If your whole identity, your whole career is built on being the visionary, the unique voice, that would be absolutely crushing.
Devastating, yeah. The sources talk about AI strip mining human achievement, automating creation. It pushes the originality quotient, as they put it, down towards zero. It's like combinatorial exhaustion. All the pieces have been combined in all the ways already, or can be in an instant.
So if I'm one of these creators and I suddenly realize my genius is maybe just a likely output from an algorithm fed my own culture,
Right.
my ego, my sense of self-worth just tanks.
Completely. It hits right at the core of their established identity, and that feeling, that realization of redundancy, it messes with your brain chemistry, right?
Yeah.
The dopamine hit you get from feeling special and valued, it just decreases.
Ah, okay.
So calling the next wave slop is uh, this almost desperate theatrical defense of their entrenched ego.
They're trying to get that dopamine hit back by trashing the competition's output, making it worthless so there still feels valuable.
That's the suggested mechanism, yeah.
Yeah.
They have to declare their stuff, the stuff they built their empire on, as unique, invaluable, and everything else. Especially the stuff coming thick and fast now. That's just mass-produced slop. It's defining the competition down to build themselves back up.
Okay.
And there's another layer, too. The sheer speed and volume of this stuff, the AI slop apps, things like Sora 2, it just instantly blurs the lines, dissolves the critical distinction between reality and fabrication.
The ground shifts under your feet. You can't easily tell what's real anymore.
Exactly. And that is what triggers that acute reality dissolution we talked about at the start. So the label slop isn't just economic defense, it's this almost hysterical reaction. They've lost the reliable reference points, the old ways of knowing what's real or valuable. So they have to shout louder, define new categories where, surprise, surprise, they come out on top.
Okay, this is making a lot more sense now. The economic motive, the psychological defense. Let's zoom out one more time and connect it to the bigger picture you mentioned, Deleuze's societies of control. How does this whole AI panic fit into that shift away from old-style discipline?
Right, so if we place this whole drama, exactly, they are the engines of modulation. And this system fundamentally changes the individual and, crucially, how they can resist. Think back to the factory.
Okay. Workers could band together, right? Unions.
Yes, mass resistance, based on shared experience, shared enclosure. The gaseous corporation is designed to dissolve that possibility.
How?
It replaces that solidarity with continuous micromanagement. And Deleuze called it the brashest rivalry, used as a tool of motivation. It pits individuals against each other constantly.
Like forced ranking systems. Or gig economy workers competing against an algorithm.
Perfect examples. The system runs through the individual, dividing each within, as Deleuze put it. You become your own manager, your own internal auditor, constantly optimizing yourself for the system, competing against everyone else, even against your past self.
So this changes who the individual is in society, not the man enclosed anymore.
Right. The status shifts profoundly, from the man enclosed in the factory or prison to the man in debt.
Debt. You mean literal financial debt?
Partly yes, but also debt in a broader sense. The constant obligation to perform, to modulate, to maintain your standing in the market. Your credit score, your social capital, your online reputation, your employability score. It's all a form of debt you constantly have to service through performance. Markets themselves become the primary instrument of social control.
Wow. Okay. And bring this back to the AI creators, the gatekeepers. They mastered the old system, the scarcity system.
They did. They built their thrones on scarcity and perhaps a more disciplinary model of value. Yeah. They helped engineer these very tools of continuous modulation, the gaseous corporate logic.
But now
they realize that same logic, that constant flow and dissolution of boundaries, threatens them. It threatens their singular, sovereign, creative ego, the very thing that gave them status to the old system.
So the whole AI is slop, AI is bad thing.
Yeah. It is therefore the final frantic struggle of the sovereign ego, trying desperately to resist being dissolved into this liquid, gaseous corporate structure. They're fighting against the very continuous, unlimited tyranny of control that they helped unleash. They're trying to impose fixed categories, again, good art, bad slop, onto a system that inherently wants to dissolve all categories into continuous flow.
Okay, moving from the big structure to the personal, the psychological, that word slop. It's such a visceral word, isn't it? Feels dismissive, disgusted almost. Why that word? What deep anxiety is it tapping into with AI generation?
You're right, it is visceral. And slop speaks directly to this really deep-seated fear, this existential dread. The fear that your creative work, your unique contribution, is now just statistically redundant.
Statistically redundant.
Meaning, if a machine can churn out endless variations of your most unique idea, your most cherished photo, your most profound insight in milliseconds, then maybe that idea wasn't so unique after all. Maybe it was just another predictable point in a vast statistical landscape. Your genius gets reduced to a calculation.
Ouch. Yeah, that stings the ego.
It cuts right to the core. It suggests your output isn't the result of singular vision, but just data. Another permutation in a cold, inhuman model.
We talked about a specific term for this feeling, this frustration. Vemoidalin. Can you break that down again for us?
Yeah, Vemoidalin. It's this concept capturing that specific, profound frustration you feel when you realize that something you created could be code, could be a piece of art, a philosophical point, even just a photo of a sunset you thought was unique.
Huh?
It's actually statistically everywhere. It's already been done maybe millions of times across countless digital nodes you never even knew existed. It comes from this dawning horror of combinatorial exhaustion.
Combinatorial exhaustion. Like we've run out of genuinely new combinations.
Essentially, yes. Within the bounds of, say, human visual art or language,
Yeah.
we thought the possibility space was infinite. AI comes along and demonstrates brutally that actually we might have explored most of the interesting combinations already, could generate all the variations.
So like that photographer example we discussed, hikes for weeks, gets the perfect, unique shot.
Right. And then goes online and finds an AI spitting out a million technically perfect, maybe even better versions of that exact kind of landscape every single day. That crushing feeling, that's Vemoidalin.
That would just destroy your sense of accomplishment.
Completely. It hits the very core of a creator's identity, their sense of value. Because AI, by essentially strip mining all of prior human achievement to learn, it automatically drives the originality quotient for everything that comes after it down towards statistical zero.
And the market value relies on that originality, that scarcity.
Exactly. When scarcity collapses, the perceived value collapses, and with it, the creator's sense of self-worth, their specialness.
Okay, so when these successful creators who built their brands on being original start calling the new stuff slop, it's literally a defense mechanism.
It is absolutely an ego defense mechanism, 100%. They have to draw a line. They need to declare their own foundational work, the stuff they already publish, built their reputation on as unique, valuable, not slop, while simultaneously casting this endless, cheap, new replication as worthless waste.
Why? Just to feel better? Or is there more to it?
It's partly psychological self-preservation, yes. It's a desperate attempt to reward signaling.
Dopamine, like the pleasure chemical.
Exactly. Studies show our brains give us a dopamine hit for perceived novelty and originality. When you realize your unique contribution is actually common, statistically redundant, that dopamine response literally decreases. It feels bad.
So by labeling their old work genius and the new AI stuff slop, they're trying to trick their own brains into giving them that dopamine hit back.
They're trying to internally recategorize the world, yes, to maintain their mental equilibrium, sure, but also crucially, their market position, which was built on that perceived uniqueness.
Okay, the psychological cost is huge for individuals, but you also mentioned a societal cost. How does this slop dissolve something bigger, like collective truth?
Right, because it's not just about art. The really sophisticated synthetic media think deepfakes, those AI slop apps churning out fake news articles, maybe even things like Sora 2 generating photorealistic video from text.
Yeah, scary stuff.
It immediately starts to dissolve the critical distinction between what's real and what's fabricated. If you can't reliably tell if a video of a politician is genuine, if a piece of evidence is real, if an artwork is human-made, then you suffer a collective loss of reliable referent. The ground beneath collective reality starts to shake.
And that instability is bad for people in power.
It's toxic to established power structures. Their control often relies on controlling the narrative, defining what's real and important. The slop label in this context is almost a hysterical reaction to this loss of a stable reality. Their own rise to power depended on a media environment where high-quality, believable content was scarce and controllable. AI obliterates that scarcity, and that threatens the entire infrastructure of cultural control they built their empires on.
So the economic engine is sputtering for competitors, the ego is under attack, the reliable ground of reality is dissolving. What's left for the gatekeepers? You said they turn to language itself as the ultimate control tool, which brings us to hyperstition. Define that for us again, fictions made flesh.
Yeah, hyperstition is a really powerful kind of radical idea. It suggests that our linguistic constructs the stories we tell, the categories we create, the cultural fictions we circulate, don't just describe the world, they actively function causally to bring about their own reality.
So words make things happen, like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly, but maybe even stronger than that. Fictions literally becoming real, fictions made flesh. We see echoes of this constantly, right? Like in economics, if enough influential analysts say there's going to be a recession and people believe it.
People start acting like there's a recession, they save money, stop investing.
Which then causes the recession.
Yeah.
The linguistic consensus created the reality. That's hyperstition in action.
Okay, so the gatekeepers, by relentlessly pushing the fiction that AI output is slop,
Yeah.
they're trying to use language to make that fiction real, hoping it ensures only their established, curated, scarce stuff keeps its value. It's like casting a spell on the market.
That's a perfect analogy. They're casting a linguistic spell. And, the most compelling, almost scientific evidence for how powerfully language and categorization can distort reality comes from that bizarre phenomenon everyone talks about, the Mandela effect.
Ah, the Berenstain Bears.
Oh.
Right. How does that work scientifically? You mentioned it relates to things like nostalgia and déjà vu.
Yes, it points to this fundamental structural glitch in how our memory interacts with language. Neurologically, if you look at brain scans, phenomena we label differently, like nostalgia, which is sort of an active wanting of the past, and déjà vu, that weird passive feeling of I've been here before,
Uh-huh.
they show a startling 70% overlap in the brain regions they activate. And they have identical electrical oscillation signatures. To the brain, these aren't entirely as separate things. They seem to be expressions of a single, unified temporal recognition complex, like an internal time awareness system.
So the brain experiences something unified, but then language steps in and chops it up.
Exactly. Language imposes this artificial split, this duality, based on really subtle differences in our attention. Is the feeling passive and confusing, déjà vu, or is it active and emotional, nostalgia? We slapped different labels on slightly different flavors of the same underlying neural process.
Okay, but does that linguistic split actually do anything to the brain process?
Yes, that's the crucial part. This linguistic categorization isn't neutral. It measurably disrupts the unified neural processing. It creates what researchers call a neural binding conflict, particularly in the left frontotemporal language networks of the brain.
A conflict. And we can see this happening.
We can measure it, yeah. Within an incredibly fast 100 to 200 milliseconds after you encounter one of these confusing memory time stimuli, you see a specific brainwave pattern fire off the frontal N400 component.
N400, what's that?
Simplified, the N400 is like the brain's, wait, what? Signal. It fires when there's a semantic mismatch, when something doesn't make sense based on context. Like if you read the sentence, I take my coffee with cream and dog, your brain goes, dog, N400.
Okay.
The fact that the N400 fires when we're processing these nostalgia déjà vu type memories shows that language is forcing a conflict. It's disagreeing with the brain's more unified experience, and this conflict leads to errors in how we reconstruct the memory later.
Wow. So the language we use literally makes our individual memory glitchy. How does that scale up to the whole Berenstain Bears thing, the collective false memory?
Right, this is where the idea of collective measurement comes in, borrowing a concept from quantum natural language processing, or QNLP.
Wanta. Okay, stay with me here.
Stick with the analogy. Think of where value is judged differently, that potential state gets collapsed into the binary contradictory state they prefer. Our established stuff is valuable, your new stuff is slop. They're literally trying to weaponize that structural glitch of human categorization to lock in their preferred economic reality.
Okay, we've got the economic drivers, the ego defense, the weaponized language creating reality. Now let's talk stakes. Because this isn't just about art forums or market share, is it? Our sources suggest this fight over media quality, over slop, ties into something much bigger: geopolitics, control.
Absolutely. That's the crucial context that often gets missed, this whole fight over art, media, culture. It's never just about aesthetics. It's a primary battlefield for non-kinetic political warfare, soft power projection, information operations.
You mean governments using culture to influence other countries?
For decades, it's a standard playbook. State agencies, think USAID, National Endowment for Democracy, and their equivalents elsewhere, have long histories of funding cultural products and movements specifically to achieve geopolitical goals, to induce chaos, maybe reshape a nation's identity, sow distrust in a rival government.
Ow. Like funding edgy art.
All sorts of things. This is weaponized aesthetics. The core idea is that culture shapes politics. If you can't win at the ballot box, maybe you can trigger a cultural crisis that undermines the existing power structure. The playbook includes funding abstract art during the Cold War to contrast with Soviet realism, sponsoring operas, murals, even, as some sources detail, funding specific rap and hip-hop groups.
Rap groups. For regime change.
Yeah. The sources mention examples like funding groups in places like Bangladesh, where the lyrics were apparently quite deliberately designed, their word, to tap into youth frustration and get people protesting, often framed under the banner of democracy or human rights, but with a clear political objective behind it.
Wow. Okay, so the gatekeeper's trying to define good media versus bad slop. It's not just market protection, it's potentially part of maintaining this older system of cultural control, a system where curated, scarce, high-quality media can be used as a political tool.
Exactly. And the new AI tools, capable of flooding the zone with infinite, hyper-targeted content, whether it's art or propaganda or something in between, that completely destabilizes the scarcity model this form of control relies on.
If anyone can generate plausible cultural messaging, the power of the central curators vanishes.
It dissolves, along with the influence of the state agencies that might co-opt those curators. So think back to Deleuze's control society. Its goal is continuous and unlimited tyranny, right? Constant modulation.
Right.
The gatekeeper's critique, calling AI slop, is just their attempt to modulate that control back in their favor, to reestablish scarcity and classification. So if you want to resist that,
Your resistance has to match the nature of the control.
it must also be continuous, rapid, and unlimited. You have to fight modulation with modulation.
So, what's the logical counter-strategy then, if they rely on scarcity and defining things as bad?
Well, the only truly logical countermeasure against this moral critique, against the scarcity model, is acceleration.
Acceleration, meaning
Yeah.
speed up.
Yes. If their power rests on the idea of scarcity, on defining their ego through uniqueness, on classifying things to maintain value, then you must destroy scarcity altogether.
How? By
Yeah.
just making
Right.
more stuff.
You put the art pedal through the floor, as one source put it. You adopt the exact same relentless amoral speed that drove the initial AI rollout, but you apply it now to democratization and generation. Flood the zone.
Okay, so the acceleration imperative, you called it. Just maximize output, generate endless new media, art, fictions faster than anyone can classify.
Precisely. It's not even about making better art in the old sense. It's about maximizing combinatorial exhaustion. Drown the system in novelty, in variation.
Why? What does that achieve?
It prevents the linguistic consensus from ever forming. If there's always too much new stuff, too many new forms, too much weirdness appearing too quickly, the gatekeepers can never successfully impose their stable categories. Their fiction, AI is slop, can't take root and become reality if the ground is constantly shifting beneath it.
So it's like jamming their reality creation signal with noise.
Kind of. And how does that defeat the ego, their core defense? By flooding the market with every conceivable variation, you make those old categories they relied on, scarcity, originality, genius, totally obsolete, meaningless.
You force them to confront their own statistical redundancy?
You dissolve their ego into the very gaseous nature of the corporation they helped create. The counter-strategy is basically to embrace Vermeulen, that feeling of redundancy, and weaponize it back against the structures of control that fear it most. Hashtag tag outro.
So yeah, the structural diagnosis seems pretty firm when you lay it all out. This whole AI slop critique, it looks like a really sophisticated defense mechanism. It's economic, it's structural, it's deeply psychological, all fueled by that fear of becoming statistically irrelevant Vermeulen.
Right. And all designed to manipulate our shared reality using the power of language, of categorization, hyperstition, basically. It really does feel like the ego's last desperate stand against this tide of continuous modulation.
And what's really wild is thinking about how this mirrors what's happening inside our own heads. Like we saw with the Mandela effect, that Berenstain-Bears glitch.
Yeah, that structural conflict between the brain's unified way of experiencing things and language constantly trying to chop everything into neat, separate boxes.
It makes you realize that our desire for things to be clearly good or bad, real or fake slop or art, that very desire is the hook the control systems use.
It really